Brock Bowers kind of in that same category, although I think Brock might be the best tight end to come out in the last 15 years. I mean, he's
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Monster Monday presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. How about today's guest, Greg Olsen? Maybe the best color analyst out there. Certainly, by all standards, does a terrific job. Tight End University, TEU, is this week in Nashville. So I had a chance to talk with Greg about why this has become such a big deal, why it is that they do this every year. And I'm so excited for this discussion, for you guys to hear it. New week means new winners, by the way. Those of you that rate and review the show or take advantage of any of our sponsors or just engage in social media in any way, love when you do that. At Ross Tucker NFL, at Ross Tucker Pod. It's actually very easy to be a winner. Got a couple of interesting news and notes after Greg as it relates to Shedeur Sanders and CJ Mosley. But let's dive into a terrific conversation with Greg Olsen from Fox Sports. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Well, I have admired this guy for a long time, both on the field and now off the field. And he's got an incredible program he started. He's actually got a few. We'll get into all of them. But this week is TEU, Tight End University, that today's guest, Greg Olsen, has founded with George Kittle as well as Travis Kelce. Greg, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Ross, I'm happy to do it, man. I've always I enjoy your work. I've always enjoyed working with you and chatting with you. So appreciate you having me on.
So let's start with, I think most people know that there are different position groups that get together in the summer now. It's kind of become a thing. Last year I went to O-line masterminds with Duke Manyweather and Lane Johnson and those guys. That was really cool. But how many years have you been doing TEU now? And just kind of talk to me about the impetus of it.
Yeah, so this will be year five. We do it down in Nashville, and it really just started organically. So back in 2021, I had just retired after my last year in Seattle, and I had gotten to know George Kittle. We had the same agent that handles all of our off the field stuff, and so he texted me and just kind of threw out a, hey, there's a bunch of guys that train down in Nashville, a bunch of young tight ends. If you ever want to come down here, we'd love to work out and kind of pick your brain or whatever. And from that simple text, he would text me, be like, hey, I got 10 guys, I got 12 guys. And it kept growing. And we kind of said, maybe there's something deeper. Maybe there's something bigger that we could run like an actual summit and have guys come in. So we got Travis involved and the three of us started TE University. And in 2021 down in Nashville, we did it at Lipscomb University. We had probably 50 guys, 50, 60 guys. And it was a great start. And now we're up to 80 and we do it at Vanderbilt, and they've been our home for the last couple of years. And it's just a blast. It's a mix of football. It's a mix of classroom on the field. We have a concert. We're going to play golf this year. So there's a lot of really fun, both work and football, but also just a lot of fun fellowship and the guys getting to know one another. And it's really cool for the young guys. You got guys that have never played it down in the NFL, and they're in the classroom listening to Travis Kelce teach them about route running and coverage recognition, and Kittle's doing run blocking tech. It's a really unique and special group, and the guys just love it.
Is it just NFL guys, Greg?
Yeah, so it's just NFL guys. In years past, we had a couple NIL deals that we did with a couple brands that we would bring college guys, the top 4 or 5 college guys in the game, and bring them and do a separate clinic. There's all sorts of rules because we do it at Vanderbilt. You're not allowed to have other college guys on their campus. So Vanderbilt sends a tight end or two every year because obviously it's on their campus, but everybody else is all NFL guys and but of all different experiences. We got really old guys and we got guys that have never played it down in the NFL yet.
I see more than the other position groups. I see Kittle's done a lot of media for this. I've seen you go on a couple of shows. Talk to me about sort of the marketing behind it and why you guys market it as well as you do?
Yeah, so I think it's twofold. So I think our ability to raise sponsorship dollars affects two things, right? So our ability to, Bud Light is our presenting sponsor, and Dude Wipes and Jersey Mike's. I mean, we have some really unique brands that allow us to put the event on. There's a TV show that they make every year from it that aired last year. So there's some really cool outlets and ability to make this a larger event and give guys a better experience. So we pay for the guys to bring them in. We put them up. We handle transportation and feeding. Our gift bags and swag bags are like off the charts. And then secondly, aside from those sponsorship dollars allowing us to put the event on, all of the proceeds, all of the remaining proceeds, all are given to charity. So it's a strictly nonprofit. Whatever doesn't go towards running the event, we keep none of it. It all goes back to a lot of Nashville local charities. Big Brothers Big Sisters, the Boys and Girls Club of Nashville. In years past, we would do football camps and clinics, and and throughout the country. So we probably give $500,000-600,000 away every single year to charity on behalf of TEU. So there's a community element to it on top of just the tight end community that we're able to make a big impact. And if it wasn't for our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to, we just wouldn't be able to hold an event of this magnitude.
That is incredible. I didn't know you guys were donating that much money and that you guys had that many things going on as a result of this. It makes sense for then you and Kittle to do the appearances that you do. I got to think on some level too, Greg, it's almost like I know you know a lot of this stuff, but it's still probably like continuing ed for you as a broadcaster with any of the new terminology or things that people are talking about in the league.
Yeah, if you don't stay up with the league, it's going to pass you by. And every year that you're out of the game, you hear people talk about it all the time. Every year that you're out of the game, things change. And if you don't make a conscious effort to stay on top of trends and tendencies and pick the minds of offensive and defensive play callers and how they see the game and how they're constructing formation alignments and play schemes and strategy and how to handle down and distances. There's the way the game is being played now is very different than how it was when I first came in the league. And I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy listening to these guys get up there and give their presentations about how they see coverage and how they determine leverages of defenders and how they determine man versus zone and all the little intricacies that each player individually kind of figures out as time goes by. And when you get a bunch of these guys in the same room and everyone's willing and able to share the tricks of the trade and the things that they've learned either at their organization or they've just learned independently because they've played a lot of downs, it's just a great pool of information to pick guys' brains who know a lot about the sport and know a lot specifically about the tight end position. So I've enjoyed in my broadcasting role, I'm sure similar to you, like I've really enjoyed learning more than I did even as a player. I enjoy speaking to defensive coordinators during the year and really understanding how they fit coverage and fronts and how they build blitz packages and how they like there's so many things that I never really had to dive into as a tight end because it didn't really matter to me. But now as a broadcaster, I enjoy being able to speak from a lot of different perspectives. And part of that is just your willingness and ability to go out and continue to learn the game.
Well, it's funny because I think you're the best guy doing it right now, and I've told you that. Every time you call a game, I learn something, which I love. I always think that's if I'm learning something, then think about all the fans that are learning stuff. And I've always been curious, Greg, how much of it do you think is because you're a tight end? Because I think tight end is the ideal position to be a broadcaster. Everybody thinks quarterback, but the quarterbacks, like when they talk about the O-line stuff, it like drives me nuts sometimes. You know what I mean? Like they don't
I get
really
it.
know that stuff that well. So I think tight
Totally.
end's ideal. And I know your dad was a coach too. So to me, you have like a double guns barreled there with being a tight end and the son of a coach. I mean, I'm sure they both help you, but which one do you think helps you more? And obviously, you're just good and talented and you work hard and all those things anyway. But which one of those two do you think helps you more? And do you think they both help you?
Yeah, I think all of it, right? I think any and all of the above. I think the part that I think has really helped me as a broadcaster is the both things that you identified. I grew up around this game. I've grown up in locker rooms since I was 5 years old. My Monday nights during the fall when we got done with homework, my mom would drop me and my brother off at my dad's office. Monday was his high school, at his high school. That was his game plan night. And he'd be there with the coaches and they'd go grab food at the local deli in New Jersey. And then they'd just go sit in his office for hours. And it was studying film and studying the weekend's opponent and really diving in. So I was exposed to really learning the game and just being around the sport of football ever since I can remember. It's all I've ever really done and known. So I had a great foundation. And then the position that I played, and then to take it even a step further, probably the style in which I played, I had no choice but to really understand everything that was going on, both what we were doing offensively, from protections to how the backs fit into those protections, to our calls, defensive front structures, coverages, my routes, but also how my routes complemented the checkdowns, how my routes complemented the drop of the quarterback. Where was his progression? Did I know if I was on the front side or the back side? If I was the first side, if I was a front side part of the quarterback's progression, I had to win quick. But if I knew I was on the backside of his progression and he was going to start on the other side of the field, I could really get my depth and I could really work my route. And I knew the timing based on him. So like putting all of that together was part of both playing the position of tight end, but also it was kind of just the style in which I had to play, right? I was not going to be the biggest guy, the strongest guy, the guy that was just going to run around and outrun you, outbody you. That was never me ever since I was in college. Like I was never that guy, but I had pretty good understanding of space. I had pretty good understanding of leverages and concepts and just the art of ability to get open without always relying on just pure physical skills. I wasn't going to physical my way through 14 years of the NFL. And I was comfortable with that. I knew that where was I going to get my edge? And my edge was I was going to know inside and out. I was going to know everything as good, if not better than everyone. Like that was always my game. That was always what I prided myself on. And I spent a lot of time in the offensive line room every single day for 10 years in Carolina. I started my first meeting at 8:05 with the offensive line, putting in the run game and the pass protections every day for 10 years. Then I would go to the skill group and we would do, pass install, and we'd do first and second down pass, third down pass. I was in on goal line meetings. I understood there was times early in my career where I was we called it 0-1 personnel. There was no running back on the field. I was the H. I was in the backfield. I was the sixth man and six-man pass pro, understanding who my backs were, where my scans were, who I was responsible for, what made us hot, how to move the point. So I was able to do a lot of that stuff and just learn those other position groups. Even though I never played running back, I never played offensive line, I sat there and listened to them being coached like I was in that position. And I was able to learn a lot about other positions, just kind of through osmosis and just kind of through the process of being in those meetings for a long time. And I've been able to try to carry a lot of that knowledge and stuff that I've learned, and try to present that through the broadcast.
Are you getting sick of people asking you about Brady or, being the number two guy, or you probably get told like 10 times a day, you should be number one. Like, I get it, just flattering. I mean, you should enjoy it, right? Like, appreciate that people appreciate you.
Yeah, listen, I had a teammate of mine, Ben Hartsock, longtime tight end in the league, went to Ohio State, and he I never forget. He told me early on when we played together in Carolina, he goes, "You're never too old for an attaboy." So no one ever doesn't like being praised, but that's not really why I do it. As far as Tom and everything, Tom and I have a really good personal relationship, a really good professional relationship. We've hung out and played golf together. We talk on the phone about our raising teenage daughters and things that we share in common. So there's no animosity towards Tom. Obviously, that was a unique situation, the way it all played out, and I get it. My aspirations of still calling top games, I've been very clear about, and how that all transpires, who knows? But I enjoy doing this profession, as I'm sure you do. Like I enjoy learning. I enjoy speaking the game to people on live broadcasts every Sunday. Some of the best games in the NFL every weekend. I'm fortunate to be able to be a part of. The coaches that I'm able to speak to, and the players, and the things that I'm able to learn, and the insight that I'm allowed kind of behind the curtain to experience. I enjoy all of that. It's a great profession. It's a hell of a job. It's a great way to make a living. Do I want to call a Super Bowl? Yeah. Do I want to call playoff games every year? Of course, everyone does. How that all plays out, what that path looks like, who knows? But I enjoy doing it. I love doing it. It's something that I feel like I can do for a long time. Um, And I don't know. I want to see how good I can be. I want to see how far I can take it. And some of it's out of your control and some of it's in your control.
Well, you've taken it very far. And by the way, you were excellent in that Super Bowl a couple years ago. Chiefs, Eagles, terrific. I was right there with you on, it's kind of unfortunate that back-to-back years there was like a ticky-tack holding at the end of Super Bowls, that Bengals, Rams, and then the Bradbury play against the Chiefs. And I thought you called that perfectly. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I think about this, Greg, every year when the franchise tag numbers come out, people talk about running backs all the time. What is the deal with how poorly paid tight ends are compared to where they should be? It's like I see some of these receivers who are like number two receivers making $10 million more a year than high-end tight ends. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. There's no way. I'm not gonna like anybody listening or watching the show on YouTube, you can look at the receiver contracts. There's no way some of those guys should be getting paid more, like double what Dallas Goedert gets paid. Like, there's no way. I don't know how that happens, but I feel like if I was running a team, right, that is a competitive. I would get two good tight ends. You know what I mean? Like, I would pay.
Yeah.
I'll pay for two Dallas Goederts over one. No offense to Michael Pittman or like whoever, right? Like, give me a break. It's wild how that happens sometimes.
Yeah. So again, I haven't really flushed this theory out on whether this is just my personal belief of how this all happened. So I think a lot of it roots back when I first came into the league. This was prior to the new CBA of 2010. Yeah, the 2010 new CBA, which really changed the rookie wage scale, right? So when you look back at who was drafted at the top of the old draft, when if you were a top five pick, whatever position you were, you immediately reset the bar as the highest paid player at your position, generally speaking. So who were they? They were quarterbacks, they were defensive ends, they were wide receivers. Then you had the Adrian Peterson running back. That was my class. So there was very few tight ends drafted at that high. You had Winslow, you had Vernon Davis. There wasn't a lot of them, right, over a 10-year span, right? So what happened was those other positions always, whether they were the best player or not, they were rookies, they always reset the market. So when Peyton Manning and Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers and Ben Roethlisberger and all these guys in the 2000s, when they went into 2000s, 2010 era, when they went in to renegotiate, they always could pull Matthew Stafford, those guys, because they always were the benchmark, regardless of how many years in the league they were. The market reset almost annually because those positions were drafted high in the draft order. Tight end wasn't. So we needed veteran free agents to reset the market. But for so long, Tony Gonzalez and then Gronk, like for so long, the market was set by a guy who was clearly the best player in the market, like in the position group, right? So those guys very rarely make free agency in their prime. It's a lot of extensions, so they're going to get somewhat undervalued, right? But for so long, how do you go in and negotiate and say, I need to be paid more than Tony Gonzalez? And Tony Gonzalez goes in and says, I need to be paid more than myself. But unless you hit free agency over and over, if you don't have multiple guys at the position at the top of the game hitting free agency, you can't bid and shop up your price. So I think what happened is it flatlined for pretty much my entire career, right? Gronk was at $10 million. It felt like for 10 years. Tony Gonzalez, prior to that, I don't remember what he was making, but who was going to ever go in there and say, I need to be paid more than Tony Gonzalez, right? So because the top guys dominated the position for such long periods of time, the draft no longer reset the market because tight ends weren't traditionally drafted. And then post 2010, the rookie wage scale no longer resets the veteran market. So it really just led to this flat line. And it wasn't really until Kittle and Kelsey broke through. They took the market from 10, 11 to 16, 17, or wherever they are now. And now all of a sudden you're starting to see, McBride, and you're starting to see some of these other guys who aren't quite on the Kelsey Kittle level, but they're all, high tide raises all ships. So I think it's just the unique nature of draft, the way the rookie wage scale was altered. And then also just people weren't drafting top five tight ends year in and year out to artificially recreate the market. So I think there's a lot of factors. Every time I've talked to Tony, I always blame him for why we didn't make more money. Um, that's just my personal belief of just kind of how the market was driven for a long, a decade plus. And it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's, it's to no one's, fault. But I think we're starting to see it now, starting to creep back up. But we're going to need Brock Bowers to hit free agency. We're going to need this next crop of guys to go out to the free agent market and drive these prices up. But I played 14 years in the NFL. I was a free agent one time, and it was going into my 14th year when Carolina released me. Like it takes big balls to say, I'm going to play out my contract and test the market. Like when they come to you a year or two before your contract's out and you play tight end, you're going to turn away that money. It's hard.
I think you nailed it. And I think Gronk in particular doing the deal as early as he did, that was before you had to wait 3 years. I think, Greg, that he and Hernandez did their deal after their second year,
They
and they
did.
were like 5 year deals. So then from years 3 through 8 or whatever, Gronk is under contract and he's clearly the best guy. So it was like, well, you can't get paid more than Gronk. And because he got it 2 or 3 years earlier, whatever it was below market value for sure. Whereas receiver, there's enough guys that can claim they're the best or think, Jefferson or AJ Brown or Chase or whoever it is, right? That they can keep kind of leapfrogging each other. There wasn't other clear guys at tight end that could leapfrog, but my brain always works. I don't know about you, but like I'm more interested in the front office side than I ever was on the coaching side. Like if I ever got on that side of it, I would want to have been like a GM. To me, it's like that's a market inefficiency. So how can we capitalize on that, right? Like what can we do? Is it having two tight ends? Is it the Bears, even though they have Cole Kmet taking Loveland at 10, and maybe they use him as their slot a lot, right? Which they can definitely do. I'm curious, it might be the last question here, Greg. The thing that's interesting to me is your position is so unique too, in that like Loveland and Tyler Warren, and I don't know how much you study them. I don't know if you do anything for the draft or not, but the two first round tight ends this year, everybody I talked to would just talk about how different they were. And obviously the Bears preferred Loveland, which I think surprised a lot of people who watched the year that Tyler Warren had. But you even talked about it to bring a whole thing back to wrap this up at TEU. You kind of have Kittle doing the talking about the blocking and run after the catch, and then you have Kelsey talking about the route running because they really are better at those things, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting case study of just how different teams value different skill sets, right? So with Loveland, you're getting more of that traditional downfield, create separation, long, linear, go up and compete for the ball. Brock Bowers kind of in that same category, although I think Brock might be the best tight end to come out in the last 15 years. I mean, he's unique. What he did in college and then obviously in his first year, Brock's unique, but Loveland has kind of those playmaking traits of, separation and create one-on-ones and almost play more like a receiver. And then Tyler Warren, right? Every highlight we saw was him playing a different position. He's playing quarterback. He's playing wildcat. He's running with the ball. He's playing H. He's playing F. He's in the Y. He's doing a lot of different things. So different players, obviously the Colts and the Bears, just saw different traits and different qualities. I think the larger question though, and you get to kind of the market and how front offices view the position, the question is, you go back to a couple of years ago with Atlanta and, they draft Kyle Pitts, as high as they did. But what happens to these players though, and to no fault of their own, when you draft a guy so high relative in this market now with the rookie wage scale, the reason people always overdraft quarterbacks, right, is not because, yes, part of it's because they're desperate, but it's also a really good financial decision to draft a quarterback high in the draft because now with everything being slotted, you're getting a quarterback very cheap compared to the veteran market. But when you overdraft a tight end or a running back, not that they're not great players, but when you draft a top 5, top 10 running back or tight end, the contract you have to give them is no different than if they were a quarterback, a wide receiver, a defensive end. But when you now lay that out across the veteran market, You all of a sudden now are paying a guy to be a top 5 tight end in the league from day one relative to the veteran peers. So the expectation is this guy, we can't give him 4 years to learn what to do. We can't give him a couple years to sit on the sideline and learn the game because we're paying him like he's a 5-year Pro Bowl veteran. And that's what throws off the market, right? Like that's what throws off expectations. That's what allows, fans and everyone to sit there and go, oh, he's a bust. Well, he's a bust because you drafted him too high relative to his position value across the league. It's not that he's not a really good player. So that's what these guys are going to face, right? The expectation is that Loveland is Travis Kelce because you're paying him as a top 5 tight end when you look at the market of what he's making where he was drafted. Kyler Warren needs to come in and be George Kittle, arguably from day one. I don't know how realistic that is. I don't know how fair that is, but that's what happens when you draft certain positions as high as these teams are doing. So I think they're really good players. I think they're talented. I think Ben Johnson clearly knows what he's doing. So obviously if he looks at Loveland and goes, I can work with that. The guy clearly understands offensive football and fit and all that. So I'm excited to watch them. Obviously as a fan of the position and just a fan of more and more young tight ends being really integral parts of offenses. But to your point about the market being out of whack and how we view performance versus pay and the draft slotting really changes how we value certain positions. And it's a big reason why certain people don't get drafted high, why certain people get overdrafted. And then more than that, how we view early on in their rookie career, we're very quick to label guys busts because the expectations of being where they're drafted don't always match reality.
You got to check him out on social media at Greg Olsen 88. Going to have an awesome week this week at TEU. He's done incredible work in the Charlotte community with the Hardest Yard Foundation. And obviously, as you can tell by the last 20 minutes, he is fantastic at what he does. Greg, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
You got it, man. Enjoy the shore. That sounds amazing.
All right, let's dive into the news. But first, going to be a big beer week for me with all the Jason Kelce events. Get cool stuff for drinking beer like I do. Buy beer, get gear from Labatt. Just head to the website, snap a photo of your receipt, upload it instantly to rack up points for exclusive merch. You can get points for every purchase at any store, bar, or stadium, any size, any product, anywhere you're buying Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Go to rewards.labattusa.com to sign up.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, so it turns out Shedeur Stander actually has 2 speeding tickets and a failure to appear in the last 2 weeks.
And I'm going to make this my Labatt take again, Jack, brought to you by Labatt. With Labatt, you can buy beer and get gear. Just go to their website, snap a photo of your receipt, upload it to gain points towards exclusive merch, any size, any product, anywhere you're buying Labatt. Sign up at rewards.labattusa.com. Last week, when it came out that he got a speeding ticket, I said it's not really that big a deal. I feel very differently about it now. The logic or the mindset to have gotten a speeding ticket and then less than 2 weeks later, you're driving over 100 miles an hour, over 40 miles an hour over the speed limit, less than 2 weeks after you just got a ticket. I don't know if that's entitlement or immaturity. There's got to be some teams that are feeling very good right now that they didn't draft him. I can't even wrap my head around that. You get pulled over for speeding. I don't understand the failure to appear thing, so I won't even get into that, like the court appearance thing. But then you go over 100 miles an hour less than 2 weeks later. I don't know. I mean, listen, there are definitely franchise quarterbacks that have had success after making mistakes like this, but not many. I mean, not many that have the mindset, whatever that is, to do something like this twice in that short of a time frame, to not learn from the mistake 2 weeks earlier. It's honestly like mind-boggling to me.
And the other big news, 5-time All-Pro linebacker CJ Mosley. He retires after 10 years that he spent with the Ravens and the Jets.
That is a heck of a career. I mean, I didn't realize it was that good, but that is, first of all, anybody who plays 10 plus years, you guys know I'm thoroughly impressed by. He obviously made a ton of money from the Jets in particular, and then 5-time All Pro. I didn't realize his career was that good. So kudos to CJ on a terrific career. Hope he enjoys retirement. I always say the same thing on this show. We move way too fast past guys that have tremendous careers like this. It's like, oh, okay, you're retired. Nobody cares. Move on. I do. Congratulations, CJ. That is incredible. Time to finish this episode strong right after this. Gosh, it was a great weekend at the beach, Jack. Just phenomenal. Thanks to the weather. Thanks to Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka and an official vodka partner of the NFL. And maybe more in particular, their recipes that I see when I grab the bottle of Smirnoff, which you can do at your local retailer, Smirnoff.com, to find recipes of delicious cocktails perfect for game day. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. There's never been a better time to get the best gift for a loved one you could ever get them. myfrontpagestory.com. Backofficescheduler.com. Humanheadnyc.com. Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.